Good morning. How are you all? It's Louisa Munson and Rick Pursell, and we are connecting through time and space, some kind of weird reality. Is it what timeline are we in, Rick? Who knows? But we are connecting to have another one of our feel good conversations, and who knows where it's going to go. I just lost somebody for saying that. Oh well, never mind. They'll be back. If this is for them, they'll be here. So we were just having quite an interactive conversation behind the scenes, weren't we? Which actually really fits in with separation and interconnectedness as the title. So anyway, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite and the opportunity. I am honored.
It's
what?
Hello. I feel like I'm in a different plane right now. Who knows what's going on? But anyway, how are you? How have you been? What have you been noticing over this last week?
Three good questions. I'm doing very, very well. I'm fulfilling my life purpose and passion. So I'm busy writing. Every day I will add to the articles or add to the experience. Mm-hmm. So that puts me on a really good vibrational frequency, a lovely plane to be operating on. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've been doing. I virtually, Sundays I try and stay out of this office, but every other day I'm in here early and beavering away with such joy and happiness. And in between, dealing with the darkness that tries to creep into my life.
Oh, yeah, we need to probe a little bit on that, but I don't want to go straight to the darkness. I love the fact that you're working on your life's work and your legacy and finding the time to engage in all that brings joy and love and peace. That sounds beautiful.
I was just on that. I was discussing with a friend in Perth the other day, and he was asking me some questions about like how many books have you sold and how many courses have you sold and all of this sort of stuff from a statistical point of view.
Yeah.
And I held up my keyboard like this. Yeah. And I said, "Can you see this little sign here that says enter?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yes." I said, "When I press that, I'm done. I am done.
Oh,
I have no interest. It's none of my business after that. I write, download this stuff. It comes through me, not from me. It's coming from a beautiful place. And it comes through me. And this is the gift that I've been given. And I give it away. So I don't monetize it. I don't want anything back in return. I don't want accolades. I don't need comments. I don't seek them. And I don't get them. I post on Facebook, LinkedIn, a whole lot. And I have no interest to it. I'm just dropping the pebble in the pond.
Yeah.
Right. And the ripples will go wherever they go. And energetically, that field is infinite. So there is no containing that field of infinite potential and infinite energy. So my job is to just chuck the pebbles in the pond and let whatever happen manifest or not.
Wow. Well, you can't actually not manifest, can you? I mean, we're manifesting all the time. So you are absolutely manifesting what is absolutely right and good for you right now. Because you never know, like if you got a whole load of comments and people interacting with you, that would take you away from your family and other things that are really important to you right now that might not be in your best interest. I love that.
Exactly.
It'd be lovely though if there was an anonymous donor that didn't want a piece of you and just had a load of money and was like, I must give this. But I love your sentiments there. That's really special, really, really special what you just shared.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we did have a couple of anonymous donors while COVID was on, and the universe was supporting this work.
Yeah.
And it got us through COVID. So, I guess it's paying it forward. Yeah. There is a lovely karmic return, perhaps.
Yeah. And actually on that note, I would actually like to thank some of our sponsors. Carl and I get sponsored by different people, and we really appreciate you. It makes a difference. It's really wonderful. But again, it's not why we're doing it.
Right.
So we're here to talk about separation and interconnectedness. And what I really liked about what you were saying about you hit enter and then you allow those ripples just to go out and they will connect with whoever they need to. I mean, that's interconnectedness, isn't it? And trust in interconnectedness. Like this morning, I'd like to say I do this as a regular practice. I don't, but I think I probably need to. But I often imagine, just getting to a really lovely imaginal sort of sense, and start to feel like my energy is moving and changing, that I'm not in this body, but that I might be infinite. And I always have some kind of intention that, if somebody, if it's for their highest intention and for my highest intention, that if they want to connect and there'll be something useful in that our energies can just find each other. And it brings me a lot of peace and comfort. And yes, sometimes I get, people from that I've never met before, like reaching out, and we end up, there's always something that brings us together. But I think just putting that intention out there is I don't know, there's something special in it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think intention is one of the primary. We have willing. If you want to change something, there has to be a willingness. And the very next thing is you set an intention, which can't be seen. It's just an idea, basically, but it's a postulation of bringing something into being in the future, or in a moment of now in the future, and it's a clear intention of what you want to do. And without intention, we can be living very wishy-washy lives. We can be like a rudderless ship. We're going somewhere at full steam, but there's nobody at the helm, or the rudder has fallen off. So the ship is then subject to the vagaries of weather and tides and winds and storms, and will almost inevitably wash up on the shore somewhere, whether it's a craggy, rocky face or a sandy beach, but that ship will eventually run aground. So having a pure intention of what you want to do with your life, or what you want to do on this day or in this moment, is absolutely essential. Otherwise, we're just like the dog chasing its tail.
Yeah, I would like to do that. So, separation and interconnectedness. I think that's a really good title, and thank you for suggesting that. Where do you want to start? I mean, we've kind of been dancing around it so far, but what would you like to start with?
Well, let's sort of define those two words, their labels. For me, separateness is the bane of humanity. If we were to look at the root cause of most of the problems on this planet, whether it be environmental degradation, whether it be wars, terrorism, the disparity between the rich and the poor, injustices, all of those, if we funnel them down, the key word is that someone or some people have now disconnected and feel separate from other people.
Yeah.
Some people feel separate from nature, therefore I can go and cut down the rainforest and destroy the habitat of animals and species. If I was truly connected to it, then I wouldn't even consider it. And this just sort of comes back to my book, Cause No Harm.
Which I have.
Thank you. And it comes down to separateness. So we can be separate from another person or a place or a situation or circumstances, but more to the point, we can be separate from the core of who we are.
Yeah.
And then we will self-sabotage ourselves. We will call ourselves fat, lazy, horrible, unloving, lovable, you name it.
Yeah.
That's because we've separated from this true infinite being that is animating these bodies. So that's the separateness side of it. And then the opposite side of that one coin is interconnectedness. That means that we are connected to everything, not just something. Everything is connected. So the roots of the trees are connected to the other roots of the trees, the biome of the soil, the insects and grubs below and above the surface. Everything is connected and nothing is disconnected. In essence, that's a truism, because everything is connected, but we think
Yeah.
we are disconnected.
I love what
We can't be disconnected. Go
I
ahead.
absolutely love that, and it's reminded me. I follow Dr. Dane here from Access Consciousness, and one of the, and I may well get this phrase wrong, but I'm going to try and get the gist of it. He says that it's about like in terms of like creating the ideal space, I guess. He says it's a place where all is welcome and nothing is judged, or all is possible and nothing is judged. And that really reminds me of interconnectedness. And he goes to sort of great pains to suggest that all that is actually meant to be, you know, because it wouldn't be here if it wasn't. And when we judge things as good and bad, you know, we start to separate, which obviously we're definitely going to be going down. And you've already started to say that when people, you know, start to disconnect from things, it starts the whole ball rolling, and it's really quite unstoppable. But the whole idea that nothing is judged, he says, like, it's okay to discern what your preference is and to discern what you think is right or wrong, but not to get into the stories of it. Sorry, I didn't mean to like take that off, because everything is connected. You're right. And that means right now, in an interconnected way, we are connected with people with whom we maybe share very little, or absolutely don't want to think that we share like characteristics with, you know, people that are creating deliberate harm to others. And I have to say, you know, in the past, I've spent many an hour kind of crying to myself, you know, crying into my pillow at night, saying, "Oh, I hate being human." You know, when you start to hate on yourself because you just think we're so destructive and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
You were saying
don't say
everything is
sorry at all.
connected.
Everything is connected. Einstein said that.
Yeah.
Chief Seattle said that as well. So it is only an idea that we have that we are disconnected.
Yeah.
Right? So the reality is that everything is connected. And that's the interconnectedness side of it. So if you look at the yin-yang symbol, there are two sides, but when they're connected, they operate as one.
Yeah.
So whenever we feel separate from someone or something or some nature or whatever it is, and we feel separate from, then there's the opportunity arises that we can cause harm to it, because it's no longer me, it's no longer my connection. I'm divorced from any connection to this person or situation. Therefore, it is now the enemy, and I can cause harm.
Yeah.
We see a lot of this is happening. It's happening in Ukraine. It's happening in Russia. It's happening between political parties, religions, you name it.
Yeah, and Hawaii as well.
Hawaii.
There's a lot going on in Hawaii. Hawaii is pretty.
Yes. Probably won't go down that rabbit hole today,
No.
but another time.
Yeah.
So separateness will lead us to cause harm to ourselves and other people and the environment, the planet, future generations.
Yeah.
So what I was pondering on this, that's okay to espouse that, and it rolls off the tongue so easily. But what can I do personally as a practice, right? So I started observing and just being very mindful and conscious of the quality of my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I would have a thought with an element of judgment on it. This shouldn't be this way. These people are just renegades. I feel very strongly about Julian Assange.
Yeah.
And there's an element of thought that came up that this is just not right. Right.
Yeah.
And that it was judgmental. towards the system,
Yeah.
towards the US wanting to put him in jail for 175 years, to the British penal system, all of that stuff. And I immediately recognized, hey, you are now separate.
Yeah.
You are separating yourself from a portion of society or a portion of humanity.
Yeah.
Or whether the system is. So it's just shining the light of consciousness on our thoughts. So now I'm recognizing I am separate from that. I have disconnected from that situation. So if the opposite of separateness is interconnected, how am I interconnected?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a fellow human being for a start, and those people that are jailing and want him jailed and persecuting him are also human beings.
Yeah.
And if we look at this energy that we consider ourselves to be, this one energy, then how can we be separate from anybody? They're all part of us.
Yeah.
Julian Assange is part of me and you and everybody. And 8 billion people are all part of this one human family. So now I'm looking for, you've recognized you're being separate. Now recognize you're being connected, interconnected. And it's been an amazing process. It's probably about practicing this one, particularly about 3 weeks now. And it's quite life-changing. It's because you don't, as soon as you are aware of this, you don't keep going down this rabbit hole, taking the next worst judgment or the next worst thought, and blah, 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 which is a waste of energy. Right?
Isn't it? Right. So much came out of that. And as you know, I've been kind of scribbling about because I always want to capture it all and kind of feedback and reflect. So the one thing that has come up consistently in what you've been saying is when we're separated from each other, it causes us to cause harm, or it just the situation of feeling separate, which we could also maybe say is feeling superior, feeling justified, feeling empowered. Empowered, it sounds like it's a really good word, but if you're empowered against somebody else, that's a horrible one. Righteous and things like that. So when we feel separated from each other, we get that feeling of, or we might get that feeling of righteousness and want to cause harm to those who we perceive we're separate from. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The enemy.
Yeah, the enemy. That's a really key word, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we make enemies in our minds, don't we?
Indeed.
And so what I really liked there, and it's actually very much like last week, which, by the way, we had quite a few bits of feedback from last week with people thanking us for the show. It's really, really quite life transforming. I've been using that a lot. So we got a hi Louisa and hi Rick from Owen Lloyd Martin in the north of Portugal. Hi Owen, hi brother, how you doing?
Hi Owen.
It's nice to have you back here once again. It's always lovely to have your energy here co-creating with us. So the quality of your thoughts is the thing that you're thinking about. You know, the moment you're maybe feeling separated, you're thinking, okay, what's the quality of my thoughts? And immediately said, oh, it shouldn't be like this, you know, about Julian Assange. And that's where we were talking with dueling with reality last week. So if you're having thoughts like it shouldn't be like this, these judgment thoughts, then you're going, well, how am I connected? So you're starting the process of trying to reconnect. How am I connected to these people? I'm human.
Yes.
We breathe, you know, all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing that we need to attend to then in this subject?
Well, we again being mindful of the quality of our thoughts, but then observing it outwardly to see where it is present, right? And just as there's a difference between judging and observing, right?
Yeah.
Judgment is on the attacking, and it tends to be the superiority. I would never do that, right? That's what
Says
judgment
everyone on
is.
the
Why
planet.
can't you be? Why can't you be like this? I would never do what you're doing. Blah blah blah. That's judgment.
I actually said that to my
Or
husband earlier this week.
or I can observe this about a behavior, and it has no direct fear or anything judgment associated. It's just an observation. So making our observation around the world, how, for a start, how are we witnessing elements of separateness? And I've just named quite a few.
Yeah.
And that then validates, hey, this is real. This is happening right now. There is so much separateness going on, right? Which is divorcing us from the other side of the coin. There seems to be, it's not entirely, but there seems to be one side of the coin which is separateness, and it seems to be the prevailing influence at the moment.
Yeah.
Right? And just by on our own little sphere of influence, excuse me, if we remedy that by looking at what is the interconnectedness that we can see.
Oh, the opposing question. I love that.
Yeah. How am I connected and not separate? What is the interconnectedness of all of this into the bigger picture? And what is happening, as I'm observing, is this is the awakening of the human family. And the human family is seeing separateness and now rebelling against it all around the world. African nations don't want the empire builders around there.
Yeah.
People are taking to the streets.
And there's lots of countries allegedly joining BRICS.
Yes.
Or applying to join.
Yeah. Something like 16, I think the last, Indonesia is one of them. Right. So, and people are marching on the street. I certainly don't condone violence. And unfortunately, that does happen to some extent. But there is an incredible protest going on. And in France, it's not about the young boy that got killed. It was about the disparity and the separateness that is happening in that country and many others. So we can witness this and then see, okay, what is the bigger picture here that is representing interconnectedness? Well, human beings are saying, we've had enough, right? I don't want this, but I'm not prepared to put up with this anymore. What do I want? And that then opens the door to doing something different, which, as Einstein says, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping to get another result. So people they're tired of getting the same stuff, the same rules, regulations, lack of freedom, lack of opportunities, lack of employment, and they want something different. So that's what's happening on a global. The caterpillar is dying and dissolving into quantum soup, awaiting the emergence of the beautiful butterfly. So we're going through this.
And that's where we are right now, isn't it? It's all dissolving around us. It's interesting, actually, because if we do apply it to real life situations, obviously, I'm in touch with quite a few people in the space of a week with my work, and I've been noticing a couple of things, kind of equal and opposite energies. So what's come into my awareness in this last week is that I've got 3 or 4 people who are in the process of falling in love with the loves of their life right now. And so that's always an interesting, I've just thought of another one as well. There's a big upsurge in love of life going on right now, and people coming into the awareness of beauty and joy and connectedness. I mean, there's no greater connection than that, because I guess if you're falling in love with the love of your life, you must by default also be falling in love with you.
Yes, exactly.
In a very deep way. So that's amazing. So I've noticed that. I've also noticed people having this renewed sense of direction. and industry and creativity and inspiration. And so I always think, wow, that's awesome as well. Something is firing people up. And I have also observed there are people kind of losing their calm focus at the moment and lashing out at other people. So it's come to my awareness of people really lashing out in such a way that they're making other people wrong around them, really judging them, and they obviously must be really hurting to do
Yes.
that. But rather than have the conversation that might be healing, that might be clearing, there's something in there preventing that from happening. And so, as I'm observing the sort of lashings out and having my own little reactions, but also observing the love and the inspiration, and also noticing how I feel about that as well. I just think, it does feel like there's a bifurcation going on at the moment, which some people talk about. These two worlds, or this reality is going to kind of split. Some people are going to choose to be in a sort of place of duality. Some people are going to choose to be in a place of cohesion and interconnectedness. I'm not sure what my belief systems are on that, but right now it feels like things are getting more separate, even though with the people who are more interconnected, they are by default separating themselves in their interconnectedness from people who are absolutely fighting to be separate from people. So it just feels like everything's splitting up. And I wonder if it's a bit like a yo-yo, where things kind of like you let out the yo-yo and it goes to the full length of its string, and then it comes whipping back in really, really fast. So right now it feels like humanity is going, pew, and then I wonder, as if like in a heartbeat, you're going back in, back in. And maybe we can't observe it because too much time like passes. Maybe the heartbeat of Earth or the nature of life takes billions of years to do it. I just don't know. But that's what I'm sensing, is this at the moment. And I'm wondering when it's
Beautiful.
going to go.
Let's hope it's in our lifetime. But you're
Yeah.
right.
Oh, God.
I liken it to the pendulum. The
Yes.
pendulum swings left and right, and
Yeah.
then eventually centers itself.
Yeah.
So
And then that becomes the new opposing point.
yes,
Hegelian dialectic.
but still with the potential for it to swing.
Yeah.
A breeze might come along and move it like that. So the overarching element that I got out of this separateness and interconnectedness is that separateness is leading us to interconnectedness.
Yes.
Like, it has to be there, right?
Yes.
We have to recognize what we don't want in order to know what we do want. So this separateness is a gift to us that is, if we shine the light of consciousness on this separateness, we will see it will lead us to, okay, how am I not separate? How am I connected? So it's an interesting, if it was a blueprint, if you wanted to wake up the human family, you would create a dualistic universe of hot and cold, day and night. And then this dualism of the consciousness is separateness and interconnectedness. And it's a separateness that leads us to the interconnectedness, just as the ego's fear leads us to the path of love.
I love that. Yeah, as you were saying that, a whole ton of questions like flew in my brain. One of them was, but I come back to it. Like, one of them is like, is it our responsibility to help our brothers who are feeling separate come back into their body and come back into the knowing of interconnectedness? And from that, if so, how? But actually, the other thing, I was just thinking, wow, this is like the end of an episode of your favorite thing on Netflix or whatever. Like, there's a series and there's a whole story arc, and the whole story arc might be like from the beginning of time right to the end. And it feels like we're at the end of one chapter, like one episode. And there's that summing up, like, as all of a sudden the pieces of the puzzle just start to fall in and you get a sense that this episode is complete. When you were saying that, about, how the separateness is the thing that brings people back to interconnectedness. Like, you have to experience that duality to be able to know what feels good and what feels bad. And of course, nobody really wants to feel bad. I don't think, naturally. I don't think anyone or any person, any plant, I don't think anything really truly wants to feel bad. But we kind of learn it. And then we get to this place where we're like, oh God, I can't bear it. And then we have to kind of drop whatever it is. We drop our ego, we drop our personality, we drop something and connect. And that's what I feel like is going on right now. So it's
Yeah.
not really a ton of questions, more a kind of splurging.
Yes.
I'm
Love the
very expressive
splurge.
today.
Uh,
Sorry.
well, I'm on the same page. If you look at the last 2,000 odd years,
Yeah.
the age of Pisces, which is
Mhm.
two fish swimming in opposite directions,
Yeah.
that's been the exaggeration of separateness and duality.
Yeah.
And we're on the cusp of moving into the age of Aquarius,
Mm.
2,000 years of peace, love, and reconciliation. So there's the interconnectedness. So, at the risk of showing off my astrological prowess, which I have, that's about as close as I've got to it. The Piscean age giving way to the Aquarian age, and
Mm.
we're in this. We're almost. I think we're at the tipping point. I think we've
Yeah.
reached the event horizon, and so what could be. I have no idea of time, but it could take 100 years to get to that tipping point,
Mm.
and another 100 years to get to fully immersed in the Aquarian age.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting those random figures there. But we as individuals, I know now if I do my practice, I can go from separateness to interconnectedness in a nanosecond, just like that,
Mm.
right? Because it just changes everything straight away. So on a micro scale, I'm practicing what the stars and the heavens
Mm.
and the astrological things are doing on a macro scale.
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. So, when I was doing my little kind of tuning in and imagining myself like outside of my body and connecting with whoever wants to co-create with me, and in both of our best interests, um, you could program your mind to do that like with every beat of your heart or with every blink of your eye or every in-breath and out-breath. I love that. Or in a nanosecond, like you said.
Yeah, yeah. It might take a little bit of practice, but it's it's likening to gratitude.
Mm.
If we're feeling grumpy about something and all of a sudden I think, I should be a bit more grateful. What can I appreciate about this situation? And within 10 to 15 seconds, your whole energy has shifted.
Yes.
Right? So again, that's another micro scale against the macro.
It's
So
funny.
to me, it's all unfolding perfectly.
Yes, yes, it really is. It's so funny because I got up at 5 a.m. this morning because I get a bit nervous that I might sleep in and miss the show. And I got up at 5 and I thought, well, let's just do some bits and pieces. And so I sat here in my dressing gown. This isn't my dressing gown, by the way. This is a dress, but it does look like a wraparound. But so I sat down doing a bit of work, feeling quite inspired, listening to a podcast in the background. And one of the questions that came up, and I've heard it many times before, or it's a sentiment. In fact, let me just go there because I typed it down. I don't like to lose thoughts. One sec. Yeah, what's true will make you lighter. What's false will make you heavier. A true question always opens a door. And then ask like something to the effect of, what is the gift of me that I'm not yet acknowledging? And I just love those 4 sentiments. What's true will make you lighter. What's false will make you heavier. Like when you're in your body, really noticing what you're feeling. Like if you're feeling lighter, that's your body telling you, well, that's the truth. That's my path. That's how I know I'm feeling great. And like if you're feeling heavy, you know full well that you're trying to hold something in your vibrational field that's just not for you. Let it pass. Um,
Mm.
but I really, really loved that. And I can't remember why I was telling you that now. Oh, because I was so engrossed listening in, I actually almost missed this show. So, so where I was so inspired and feeling really light and doing some prep for another show, I looked and I was like, oh, must get in the shower. And I was, so yeah, thankfully my lightness woke me up again. But wow. And you're right. Like I love that you said that there might be 100 years of the sort of untangling as we're kind of awakening in and moving into this new vibrational energy. And so, yes, you can do it like that. But in terms of the earth, like people are hoping, there's going to be one day all of a sudden the shit hits the fan and everyone wakes up at the same time and everyone's like, oh, hello, brother. Hello, sister. I don't think it's going to happen like that. So I think you're
No.
right saying it's probably like 100 years. And so like in our next episode, the next episode might be, or the next season of our show, Rick, might be the Unravelling, where there's episode after episode about the things we're noticing as people are unraveling and coming into their senses and their consequences of that. It's huge what's going on right now.
Yeah. Well, I think astrologically, it's the precession of the equinoxes is 12 components of just a little bit over 2,000 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it takes about 26,000 years something to go through the whole astrological chart. So 2,000 years of Pisces, 2,000 years of Aquarius. I have no idea, and maybe you have some inkling of what it would take to go transit from Pisces, get to the moot point, and then transit fully into the Aquarian age. So I was just picking a random number, but any thoughts on what it might be?
I have absolutely zero idea. I think it's going to happen. Okay, I do have an idea. I think it's going to happen differently for everyone. Because it's how we're perceiving it, isn't it? And maybe we're not through the whole thing until every living being goes, we're here. Like there's lots of people in the car going, are we there yet?
Right.
Yeah, I really don't know. Carl often says you've got a transit in Uranus. And funnily enough, Uranus, he just says that for fun, but Uranus is the ruler of, or one of the rulers of Aquarius, and it's all about feeling enlightened, and it's about consciousness. Uranus, or Uranus, was the god of the heavens and the sky, so it's very much about the how that sky is represented. But I would say there's lots of signs of it right now. Like Pluto, like the outer planets, like astrologically. I don't want to take this over with astrology, but and I must just say hello to Siri, who's joining us from Norway. Hi, I'm up.
Siri.
Thanks for joining us, Siri. It's lovely to have you here as well. But like the outer planets, they're quite slow moving. So we've got Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus that we track. And then there's loads of sort of other things right behind Pluto, but we look at those, and right now they've all shifted, and Pluto is right on the tippy. Pluto's doing this right now in between Capricorn and Aquarius. He popped into Aquarius earlier this year, then moved back out from our perspective, but he's shifting in. And like in this year, ideas of AI have all come, really come into our awareness. I always think what's like reflected here shows us what's happening etherically. So physically, we're being told about the Internet of Things, which is a connectedness, right? And all these other sort of systems of being, which I think are kind of like 3D versions of what we might be going into. However, if I'm going to be really, really honest, which I should, I don't even know if I believe in planets anymore. So I'm an astrologer that doesn't necessarily believe in the solar system.
Right.
I know that doesn't make sense, but the more I think about the nature of everything, I just think it's all a big story. And it's a story that I use in my job because everyone else likes that story of astrology, or the people that want to work with me love and appreciate that story and the ideas of the positions of the planets. When I think about it, I don't know what's real and what's not. I'm just doing the best I can do. So, Yeah, in
And that's the
theory.
same for all of us.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that answered your question or not, but
It's a very interesting perspective. I did have a thought on a micro scale personally. Um, if there is a precession of the equinoxes going and we're transiting from Pisces into Aquarius, then that could happen because in the 60s we're singing about this, the
yeah,
age of Aquarius.
yeah, the
So
fifth time.
maybe the hippies were the
Yep.
first to make a transit
Yeah,
into the Aquarian beingness, perhaps.
yeah, yeah.
And other people who are hanging on to separateness and duality and superiority and all those things, they may take longer to transit in. Eventually, they may go into it. But so, what would it take for us to say that we are at this moot point and
Mhm.
that now we're moving, instead of transiting into, we're transiting through maybe critical mass? When
Yeah.
enough human beings arrive at a point where they're displaying and behaving the characteristics of an Aquarian age,
Mm.
right? Peace, love, reconciliation, then that would be the 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 tipping point, I guess, of we could say, well, we're in it, but not everybody's in it.
Yeah.
So we do it on a micro scale and we're doing it on a human scale and perhaps beyond that. So that's just some thoughts.
I
It,
love those
it
thoughts.
really, it's no point in putting any figures on it,
Mm.
right? Because how do you measure it? How do you
Yeah.
measure where individuals are on the scale? And how do you get the data of how many individuals are where they are?
Mm.
Good
It's
luck with that.
yeah, I would agree. Before I answer that, just from I mean, not a definitive answer, but like my own thoughts on what you just shared, I just want to put up a serious comment. Thank you for greeting me. Luckily, I caught you this time. Oh, it's so nice. We're all in this moment together. I love that.
We are.
So you were talking about the Aquarius energy and the idea of peace, love, and reconciliation. And it's interesting. The fifth dimension, by the way, Carl and I, we've done a couple of shows on that song and we've examined the lyrics, and it's quite funny. If I do, if I do say so myself, the lyrics really actually are astrologically redundant.
Yes. Yes.
Because the moon is in the seventh house all the time in various places around the world. And Jupiter aligning with Mars does happen. You know, it's not like a once in a lifetime thing. But like I said, you know, it's a great song though. And I love the idea that the whole idea of peace, love, and reconciliation has come up. But Aquarius, it's one of these signs that apparently has two rulers. So like one of them's Uranus, which is all consciousness and freedom and independence and the wisdom to be able to choose in that moment. But it's also ruled by Saturn, and Saturn seeks to create systems and rules and regulations. And it's like, how do these two energies fit together? And this is the thing that I'm noticing politically, have been for quite some time, is that there are lots of people, and I used to consider myself to be very much liberal in my thinking, because the whole idea of like being conscious of what's happening to my brother and sister across the world, and different bits and pieces. How can you want a political system that might steal from them or take their opportunities to prosper you? So, you know, there's these idealistic ideas of peace and love and reconciliation. And then the Saturn side comes in and says, okay, well, we all need to lower our expectations. We all need to, you know, and this is where the energy of peace, love, and reconciliation can get a little bit twisted into a system of thought. And so I've noticed, you know, in recent years that the sort of beautiful empathy that people have then gets, you know, some bright spark somewhere across the world says, well, you know, if we want everyone to be loving, then this needs to be the new rule. And so there is this kind of ego side that comes in to try and control it. And I actually think that's what's going on. You know, I don't want to call it because it's not my place to. And who's to say that my view is the only way? But, you know, right now when I hear a lot of kind of sort of liberal speak at the moment, a lot of them seem to be enforcing the direction, but you never get true compassion or true joy or true peace or true reconciliation where someone is saying, this is how it needs to be, kind of censoring. So I
Yes.
wonder how can the Aquarian ideas of truth and liberation and freedom merge with ideas of peace and love and reconciliation? Like, how can it come together where it's felt so beautifully in the heart that we don't need someone to tell us what to do?
Well,
And
you
in
just
fact,
answered.
that we
You've
stand so
just done.
strong. Sorry, how do we do that? Go on.
You've just answered the question. What you're describing on a micro scale is the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere.
Yeah.
The left hemisphere is logical, analyzing in language, linear. The right hemisphere sees the bigger picture, its intuition, its creativity, its imagination and curiosity. So those two come together, and what is the triune of that is the heart.
And
This
wisdom.
energetic heart,
Yeah.
which has its own intelligence. So we're not trying to figure it out of the head. We're
Yeah.
being guided by the heart, and the heart would lead us to wiser, more intelligent behaviors.
Yes.
So, and we know that wisdom is knowledge plus practical experience.
Yeah.
The marriage of those two give us wisdom. So when we know about something, but then put it into practice, now we can say we've got wisdom on that subject. So just coming back to the triune, we've got the left hemisphere, right hemisphere, and the heart, which is the portal to the infinite, will guide us to what is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
The heart is not the ego. The ego is in the left hemisphere of the brain, right, or experienced through it as a peanut bunch of cells. So the heart is the mediator that brings these two together.
Yeah.
And that's my rambling.
I love that. You thank you for realizing I'd answered my own question. That's always good, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, for those people who do really seek like world peace, and I met some lovely kind of witchy women recently, and had lovely conversation, and there was a lovely listening and energy flowing, and there was also this idea that arose, well, if we can solve world hunger, if we can solve this, and I was like, oh my God, there's the rationality coming in, like we must kind of put some, as I heard the words solve world hunger or solve the food crisis or solve this, I imagine like these walls coming down, and this might just be my perception. I obviously got a massive need for freedom and truth, but I imagine walls coming in around the conversation, because I was thinking, when we are always coming from the perspective of we must solve something, there's always like this idea that there's a whole list of prescriptions, like prescribed behaviors. And we never know if that's actually true or not in the actual moment. Maybe, my way of being is deeply impractical. And I wonder if there will be this moment where, in a connected way, everyone is just singing with the same kind of harmony, like there's a vibrational resonance. I put myself in a separate state in that moment when I heard the word solve this. I went, I was like, hang on, I need to step away.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if I'd have lent into it. I don't know.
Well, with imagination, we can imagine a better world.
Yeah.
We can observe what's not working for humanity, for all the species, for the earth itself, and we can imagine with the right hemisphere better ways of doing things, more freedom, more equality, more justice. So we can postulate that as a future. But it's not done as we must do this. It has to be done on a carrier wave of compassion and understanding, and having the courage to step out and do something different, rather than another enforcement. It's no different from an asinine law that you have to follow.
Mm.
by having another law that you have to follow. We're still using the same
Yeah.
formula,
In a new way.
and you can't solve a. Einstein said you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it.
Yeah.
So we've got to change the way our thinking is, and we do that by thinking through the heart,
Yeah.
allowing our connection to the heart. What would love do now, right?
I love that
What
question.
is something that's different from what we're doing instead of repeating and regurgitating the same old stuff?
Yeah. I love that so much. And in defense of these wonderful people I was sat with, I think it was my own triggering to the words solve and must. That was the thing that put me into a place of separation for a moment or two. We've got some comments coming in from Siri in Norway. She's saying, I feel very much at home in your answer, Rick. Artists like me are right-brained and I always feel very right. Also, my work is with creating balance between the hemispheres in clients, but also inducing more creativity to the world.
That's exactly what I want.
P.S. All of my artworks are right hemispheres.
Brilliant.
Sarah, remind me, are you left-handed or right-handed? I'm fascinated by this. But yeah, Siri's work is really, really creative. And really, when you're talking about the imaginal cells, where the caterpillar in his chrysalis turns into kind of like an imaginal soup. Siri, who is right-handed, I now know, she really gets the imaginal cells working. Like, her work is very fluid. I love it. Thank you for that, Siri. We're coming up to the hour very soon, so I'm wanting to kind of recap, because a lot of things have come out of this conversation. But there was a question that I had earlier, which I said I wanted to park, and that is, whose responsibility is it to help people when they're in, like when people are separated? Is it our responsibility to help people out of their separation? Is there anything that we can really do? I've got some quite strong feelings about this, unsurprisingly. What are your thoughts?
Well, we can only help people if they are willing to accept help.
Yeah.
We can offer help.
Mhm.
And if there is a willingness to do something different or to resolve the situation, then we could monitor the quality of our advice.
Mhm.
If the request has, we shouldn't be advising or telling people what to do without their
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah.
But if they are receptive, say, listen, I'm stuck here, right? I am stuck. What can I do? Then that opens the door to offering some advice, be it sage advice or not. So
Yeah.
that's the starting point. Is there a willingness for the person to receive some advice if you're in the position to give it? But recognizing that each one of us, our journey, our path is unique to us.
Yeah.
Nobody, not one of the 8 billion people on this planet has had the identical path and experiences that another one has. So who are we to guide somebody on their path when it is quite often totally different?
Yeah.
However, there's some universal truths that permeate through our lives, and given permission, we could offer some advice. And this is what I do as a coach.
Yeah.
Right? So moving away from separateness, getting people to recognize, well, do you realize that you are separating yourself, or you're separate? Usually it's, do you realize you've separated from your core being, right? All right. So what can we do to get you reconnected there? And then you're looking at, okay, what would interconnectedness look like as opposed to separateness?
Yeah.
So there are ways of helping that, but very often we have to be hands off. I mean, I use this metaphor when we're teaching our kids to ride a bike, and I took the trainer wheels off, and I had my hand on the saddle. I knew they were going to fall off and come back with bloodied knees and elbows. and we can't wrap each other up in cotton wool to protect them.
Mm.
So sometimes we have to stand back and let people fall over, let people make their choices, even though we can think, oh, that's a really dumb choice you made there, right? Not enunciating it. We
Mm.
might think that, but that was the right choice for them at that time.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, 10 years later, they might think, well, I wouldn't make that choice again.
Yeah.
But we don't like to have people control us and tell us what to do. So
yeah, I mean, thank you. That's a really wise answer. Yeah, I mean, like, when we were talking at the start about, the elements of separateness that we might be witnessing, so people, they, going back to my notes, when people are separated from each other, it causes them to do harm, or they feel justified to perpetrate harm towards another person because they might feel superior. They see other people who aren't being like them as being the enemy. And I think we are in, quite choppy waters at the moment, given that, some of the people I'm experiencing right now are kind of feeling more connected and like in a sort of beatific sense. They're really enjoying life. And then, it's come into my awareness about people who have been very separate from others, and actually doing kind of hateful things, some kind of obviously hurt people, like lashing out. I guess there comes a time, and like we've been raised into these civilizations where there are things like punishment and jails and all sorts of different sort of mechanisms that we use as a society. And I think people are quite used to sort of having the idea that that person's separate. Look at that person; they're doing something. We must intervene. I really, it's a difficult one, but I think right now, if I think things are coming undone, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And is it our responsibility to get involved? And I like your answer because it's a very clear one. We get involved if they're asking us to.
yes,
And I guess the only other thing we can do is lead by example as well. Just
exactly.
completely be in our truth, in our heart, and whew.
Yep. Be a beautiful, beautiful example
Oh,
of gratitude and compassion and love and kindness and understanding. Just be an example of that.
we've got a lovely comment from Owen that's just come in. I've missed these chats so much. I thank you both and much love. Seriously, Rick, if you do come to Portugal, I will have to introduce you to Owen. I'm sure Owen would love that, right? Is that right, Owen? It'd be nice for us all to hang out together.
Well, I look forward to that, Owen. So stick around there.
Yeah, definitely. So, final words then. What would you say we could, like, if there was a good takeaway from today's very sort of animated conversation, what would you share?
Use separateness as a way of finding interconnectivity. So if we feel separate, be aware of that and replace that with how am I connected in this situation? That
Wow.
would be it.
That's really great. We've got a couple more comments coming. First of all, Owen saying absolutely. So that's get together on when you come here. And we've got one I haven't had a chance to review because it's so long, but it's from my husband. So I'm guessing it could have some comedic value, but let me just check. I'm wondering if separation is a cause or a symptom. If it just is, we know it by its effects. My experience of separation is a longing for the other, as its presumed benefits soon wear off. Wow, that's profound.
It's a
Not
great
comedic at
question.
all. Thank you.
I think it's both a cause and symptom, not either or.
Yeah.
The cause of our woe is separateness, and the symptoms are we are being separate from something or someone.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I think it's time to kind of fade out of this lovely conversation, bring it to a close, and get on with the rest of our days. from that piece of noticing where we are separate, and also seeing it as the gift that it is, that it brings us back to interconnectedness. I can see that Owen and my husband are connecting as we speak in the chat room. So that's a job well done. Yeah, they're just having a gossip. That's good. So anyway, thanks everyone that's joined us today,
Thank you.
and also people that are listening in later on. You know, thank you so much for your presence, because it's, you know, if we are in this kind of weird time space continuum, we're all here together right now in this moment,
All connected, like the spider's web. We're all connected.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for being here, and hopefully we'll catch you another time. Rick, thank you once again for a lovely conversation.
My pleasure.
Are you free next week? Should we do
Yes,
another?
I am. Yes, I am.
I'll pop it in the diary, and hopefully if you're here to join us next week, please do. It'll be a 7 a.m. start. That's Lisbon and London time, and it's a 2 p.m. Is it 2 p.m. where you are?
Yes, 2 p.m. Yes,
2 p.m.
yes,
if you're in Indonesia. I don't know about Americans. They're probably still asleep. But anyway, lots and lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. It's been an absolute pleasure today.
It has. Big love to you.
Big love.